Hey y'all, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Taya and this is Taya's Turning Pages. Okay, so first things first, I do want to apologize for the noise that you may hear throughout this video. I am sitting in front of my windows right now and it's currently raining outside. So I'm sorry if you hear any of the noise, but like we gotta do what we gotta do. So anyways, by the title of today's video, you can tell that this is my August wrap up. It is currently August 28th and I read a decent amount of books this month. I think I read about 7 books, which is really good for me considering that I do have a full-time job working in social media. I work a 9 to 5, so it is kind of hard for me to read as much as I would like to, or to read like 20 books a month, but I think seven is great. So let's get started. I'm not going to hold up each book just because, like, as y'all can tell by my bookshelf, I'm still getting this together, but I just don't feel like holding up every book. So I'm probably just gonna pop up a picture on this screen over here so that way you can see the cover and the author and all of that stuff. So let's get started. The first book that I read this month was Berkely by Emily Henry, and I gave this one a 5-star. Y'all, this was a 5-star read. I knew it was because in my last video, I was already like 100 and something pages in and I was already falling in love with it. And then by the end, I was done, okay? Like, this book was so good. I definitely believe the hype with not only this book, but also Emily Henry and her writing. She just has such a good way at making her characters like very just sarcastic with like a dry sense of humor. She makes them have good banter, and I just love when authors can do that to the point where you're actually laughing out loud or smirking at some of the things that the character says. So for this book, for those of you who do not know, Berkely is basically about these two people, one woman named January and this other guy named Augustus, and basically I don't even know if it's really enemies to lovers, because that is the trope. I don't really know if it's enemies to lovers because honestly, it seemed like January was beefing with herself. Like, if we're really gonna be honest here, it seemed like Gus didn't really even know that they were beefing, but anyways, it's classified as an enemies to lovers trope. So basically what happens is both January and Gus are authors, and they both end up in the same small town over the summer, and they both basically like lock themselves away in their respective houses to try to get out of their writing rut and produce a book by the end of the summer so that way their publishers can publish something. Well, they decide to hold a challenge slash like a bet, and they decide to swap genres. So I think Gus mainly writes like literary fiction, whereas January focuses on romance. So they decide to swap genres and see who can write the better romance book or the better nonfiction book, and you know, the story takes off from there. So I thought it was a great read. I really enjoyed it. I know that this book is getting a lot of praise and hype, as it should, but I do know that there are some people out there that really did not care for this book, or they really preferred People We Meet on Vacation versus Berkely. And honestly, y'all, I DNF'd People We Meet on Vacation. I did not like it. I'm sorry. I was like almost 200 pages in and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot do it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I just don't like friends to lovers or what, but I don't know, I couldn't get into it. I also thought one of the characters in the book was just very insufferable. I just couldn't deal with it, so I ended up DNFing it. Maybe I'll return to it later on in the future, but Berkely was amazing, and it is a 5-star read, and I definitely recommend it if you're still trying to get a quick little summer romance book in. I definitely recommend that one. So the next book that I read for the month of August was Luck of the Titanic by Stacey Lee, and can we just take a moment? Can we just take a moment? Another 5-star read, okay? I originally rated this 4.5 stars, but I kept thinking about the book a week, then 2 weeks, then 3 weeks later, and I realized, like, you know what, no, this is gonna have to be a 5-star because Stacey Lee's writing, beautiful, brilliant, exceptional, sensational. I loved it. I loved this book from start to finish. The main characters are so likable, and I loved it. So basically, this book is a historical fiction book, and I typically don't read too much historical fiction, but I was very interested in this because it has Titanic involved, and I'm very fascinated with the Titanic. But anyways, this is a historical fiction book, and it's about this girl named Valora Luck, and she has a twin brother named Jamie, and she wants to become a circus acrobat in the United States. So she finds herself on the Titanic, and she's really trying to, you know, make it as an acrobat, and the Titanic is like the only way for her to get to America because she lives in England, I think, at this time. but obviously her dreams of being an acrobat are put on hold because she has to survive the night as the Titanic collides with an iceberg. So this book was just so beautifully written. It was so sad, to be honest. Very gut-wrenching, but I genuinely enjoyed it. Again, Valora, Jamie, and all of the other side characters were just so likable to the point where I was rooting for all of them, like literally all of them in the end. It also explores racism and discrimination and hate and bigotry, specifically against Chinese people, and it also deals with sexism as well. So Valora is a woman, and it just goes into, you know, how women, especially Chinese women, were treated at that time when the Titanic was, you know, around and when it sunk, which was back in the early 1900s, of course. So I think Stacey Lee did a really good job at exploring that and really, like, you know, really showing the horrors in which people of color had to face back in the day, especially now too, but you know, back then as well. And I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great book. I feel like I'm gonna reread it, to be honest, because it was just that good. And I'm really excited to see what else Stacey Lee puts out. I know she has another book. I know she wrote another book before she wrote Luck of the Titanic, and I feel like I need to read that soon. I definitely want to pick that up, but she is definitely a great author. And I also wanted to say that this book memorializes the 8 Chinese passengers that were on the Titanic at that time. Stacey Lee did a lot of research when she wrote this book, and she discovered that there were 8 Chinese passengers aboard the Titanic and only 6 survived. So this was basically a story to also honor them and to shine light, you know, on them and to give them a voice, because they didn't have one back then, unfortunately. There's really no record or anything else about these passengers. There's really not much else information on a lot of them, but I just thought that was a really nice thing for her to do and to really shine light on that. So definitely recommend Luck of the Titanic, and I know I'm going to be rereading this one again in the future. So the next book that I read was Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry by Joya Goffney, and this was so cute. This was such a cute little book. I gave this a 4.2 star. So this is about a girl named Quinn who makes a list of everything. She has a journal where she keeps a list of everything. Like, she'll literally write to-do lists. She'll just write all of her thoughts down. So it's kind of like a diary, but like she calls it a journal. But one day she misplaces it accidentally, and it then gets stolen by an anonymous person, and they pretty much blackmail her and say to her, if you don't complete 7 of your greatest fears or overcome 7 of your greatest fears, I'm gonna expose basically all your like secrets and thoughts in this journal on Instagram for the whole school to see. So she decides to team up with Carter, who is the male protagonist in the story, and she decides to team up with him, and together they help Quinn face her greatest fears, and they also obviously fall in love along the way. So it was so cute. It was definitely enemies to lovers trope, right up my alley. This is a YA book. So besides just focusing on the romance part of it, it also focused on race a lot as well, and I didn't know that Joya was going to explore race and identity and culture and all of that stuff within this book. I obviously know that the main characters are Black, but I just didn't know she was going to explore race and identity the way that she did, and I thought she did a brilliant job. I think she broke it down in a way that's very digestible for YA readers, because this is a YA book, as I mentioned before, and I just thought she did a really good job. I thought it was excellent. I really like when books, especially when Black authors can, you know, incorporate that into their stories, and it feels like, you know, and they can incorporate that into their stories, and I just thought that the whole book was really well done and well written. I did cringe at some scenes in the beginning, just because, like, you know how YA can be, and especially as a teenager, cringy things happened all the time, I feel like. So yeah, but other than that, I really enjoyed the book. And there is also a part in there where Quinn, the main character, the heroine, talks about her grandmom and her relationship with her grandmom Hattie, and it just touched my heart, because I love when elderly people and grandparents are represented in stories, because it makes me think and miss and think about mine. So I just felt seen, you know, I felt seen in that book. So I really enjoyed it, and definitely recommend that one as well. So the next book that I read was Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas, and y'all, I don't know if you guys know this about me. I don't even know if I said it. I think I did say it in some of my other videos, but I am an Angie Thomas stan. Like, this is an Angie Thomas stan account. She's one of my favorite authors, as I mentioned before, and I will keep saying it until I go blue in the face. The Hate You Give is one of my favorite books of all time, period. Point blank, period. Ain't no competition. Like, I love that book. I love all of the characters in that book. The movie was excellent. I loved it. So when I saw that she was coming out with a prequel to The Hate U Give that focuses on Maverick, Star's father, and his story, I was sold. I was sold. I immediately went on Target and saw that they also had a signed edition, first edition copy, and it was signed. So I only have one signed book on like my bookshelf, and that is Angie Thomas's book. It's right here. Okay, see, I can take this one down because it's right there. But so this is the book right here, and like I said, it's the signed first edition. I got this from Target, as you can tell by that big ass 20% off sticker that I hate when they put it on the cover like this. But here's Angie Thomas's signature. I don't know if you can really see that. There you go. Oh my gosh, like when I tell you guys, like I cherish this book, I cherish this book. Sorry, I had to shut off the camera really quickly. But anyways, like I mentioned, this is a coming of age story. So this not only focuses on Maverick and his life, but it also focuses on Lisa. And we get to learn how Lisa and Maverick met and how they became, you know, who they became in Star's story. So I really enjoyed this. I think Angie Thomas just does such a great job with her characters. That is one thing I noticed about her. She does a phenomenal job at fleshing out her characters and giving all of them depth, while still making the book concise and succinct. I don't know how she does it. That is a talent. That is a talent as a writer, but she does it every single time. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book. This also explores Black boy and manhood. It also discusses, you know, just debates and not debates, conversations about teen pregnancy, gang violence, you know, substance abuse and all of that type of stuff, and how growing up in the hood can, you know, really give young Black people PTSD, like genuinely. Like you could see like throughout this book, whether it was Maverick or his friends, like they were really suffering, like really suffering. So I think Angie Thomas did a great job with exploring all of that and how all of that really intertwines. And I think she also did a phenomenal job on the slang. I said this before in my last book haul. Was my book haul? I don't know if it was my book haul or if I might have said this on my Bookstagram, and I'll leave a link to that down below, but I left a review about this and Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry, and I really appreciate both Angie Thomas and Joya Goffney for including slang that is not from 2001. I feel like a lot of books that center around Black folks written by, you know, Black authors, especially for like YA books, I feel like sometimes the slang is just so outdated. Like they'll say like the bomb, and I'm like, who is saying that in 2021? So I really enjoyed the fact that, you know, she hit the nail on the head, I feel like, with the slang in the AAVE. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed this. I gave this a 5-star, duh, like it was amazing. And my boyfriend said that he actually wants to read this book, so I'm hoping he reads it soon so that way we can have a discussion on this. And I would love to get his thoughts, because I definitely saw a lot of, you know, I saw him, my father, and my brother in Maverick, and just what he was going through as a Black man, you know, just growing up. So I saw a lot of them in him, and I would love to just get his feedback and his opinion on how he feels as though this book explored Black boy manhood. So yeah, Concrete Rose, definitely recommend. So the next book that I read is Ace of Spades by Farida Ayamide, and y'all, this book, 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5. I only read good books. Like I said, I only read good books, and this was no exception. This was so brilliant. The fact that Farida wrote this, I think, while she was in college and just got it published while I think she's wrapping up her final year, is mind-blowing. I don't know how she was able to put out a story like this while dealing with school, but she did it, and she's a queen, period. Like, I don't make the rules, but she's a queen. So this book is about 2 students that go to a private academy, Chiamaka and Devin, and they're the only Black students at this private academy. So this book is basically like Get Out meets Gossip Girl, 2 of my favorite pieces of cinema and television. And basically what happens is they are both being recognized and acknowledged for their academic achievements and accolades, along with other students in the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the year. And once that happens, things start to go downhill very quickly. This person named Aces starts to target them anonymously. We don't know who this person is. They start to target Chiamaka and Devin by sending text messages to not only them, but the entire school. So that's where the Gossip Girl element comes in. And pretty much what they send out are very harmful secrets that can really destroy their reputation. And this is their final year at their school. They're in their senior year, so they're obviously focusing on college and making sure that they can, you know, making sure that they have their grades and everything like that together, so when they apply, everything goes well. But because of Aces hell-bent on destroying their lives, they're obviously having a lot of problems with that. So I don't want to say too much, because I feel like this is the type of book where you really just need to read it for yourself and pick up on the themes and the topics that are being explored here. But I will say that I think Farida did a phenomenal job at exploring institutionalized racism and how negative, sick, twisted, stomach turning and gnawing it can really be for Black and brown folks. I think she did a phenomenal job at really giving a visual aid to it versus just explaining it. I think she was able to really paint a picture through her storytelling, literally, and show like, yeah, this is how it is. This is really how white supremacy can really affect Black and brown people through everyday mundane things. So again, phenomenal book. 5 out of 5 stars. I think this may be one of my favorite books of 2021, to be honest. And I definitely don't know if I'm gonna reread this again, just because it made me sick to my stomach. Just the things that Chiamaka and Devin went through. It really like triggered me. As a Black person, it did trigger me. So I definitely don't know if I will be rereading it again, but it is such an amazing, powerful book that I do recommend that you read it, that everyone reads it. So all of the books that I just mentioned were all officially on my August TBR. So I got through all of them and I was really excited about that. Very proud of myself, pat on the back, pat on the back. But because I was finished reading all of the books that were on my TBR for that month, I decided to read a cute little light fluffy romance read, because I needed like a detox from Ace of Spades. And that's not because like I hated the book, obviously I loved it, but it was because it was so heavy, so dark, and so twisted that I needed to read something that was just cute and fluffy. So I decided to read Blackout by Danielle Clayton, Nick Stone, Tiffany D. Jackson, Ashley Woodfolk, Angie Thomas, and Nicola Yoon. And I liked it. It was so cute. It was a cute little summer read. It's basically a collection of short stories that follows different Black teenagers in New York City, and it follows their love stories during a blackout in the city. So really interesting. I've lived in New York one summer before, and I could not imagine being in a blackout in that city. That would be very scary, but I really enjoyed what the authors did here. I thought that the stories were really cute, really fun, and just, you know, just a light romance summer read. So my favorite stories in this were Made to Fit, The Long Walk, and Seymour and Grace. Those are my favorites. I think there were about 6 or 7 stories within the book, but those are my favorites. And again, I enjoy them. There's really not too much else to say. I gave this about a 4.2 stars. So I'm not really like the biggest short stories person. That's just not really my vibe, but I really wanted to support these authors. And if there is a book about romance, especially where the leads or main characters are Black, I'm gonna read it. So yeah. The next book that I read after that was It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. Y'all already know, by me doing this, you guys already know that it is a 5-star read. Believe the hype. Just like the beach read, believe the hype of this book. It is so good. So good. It had everything that I could ask for in a romance. It had my enemies to lovers trope, it had grumpy sunshine trope, it had small town romance, rich girl, working class guy. Like, it had everything. It had steamy scenes, like actual steamy scenes. I'm talking about Wattpad-esque steamy scenes. And you know, if it has the Wattpad type of stuff or themes, you know it's gonna be good. So I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know some people didn't really care for it because, you know, Brendan, who is the male protagonist, is kind of possessive and misogynistic, but like, I feel like you're gonna get that with enemies to lovers trope, or at least where the characters are together and like in the beginning they just didn't like each other. Like, I just feel like you're always gonna get problematic themes like that. But anyways, this book is about a girl named Piper who is rich, and she lives in California, and she's a social media influencer. And one night she basically does something where she gets cut off, and her stepfather decides to send her to a small town, and pretty much to teach her, like, you know, the value of a dollar and how you have to work for things in life and all of this other stuff. So he sends her there, obviously, like, you know, as a lesson. And so she's in this small town with her sister Hannah, and they're basically just navigating this small town and, you know, figuring out their place there for the next however long they have to be there for. And it's just following them and their adjustment and the shenanigans that come along with that. And then enters Brendan, who lives in the town. He's a local, obviously. He's very well respected in the town. And from the gate, he can't stand Piper. Piper can't stand him. They both obviously acknowledge that they are attracted to one another, but they're trying to act like they're not. And as time goes on, obviously they start to, you know, open up to one another, and then you know the rest. So it's really, really good. I really, really enjoyed it. This is, I think, inspired by Schitt's Creek. I never watched Schitt's Creek, but now I'm tempted to watch it because I really, really loved Piper as a character. And I think she's based off of one of the characters in Schitt's Creek. So now I want to watch it. But Piper was amazing. I thought she was so nice, so kind, so like bubbly and charismatic and funny. I actually laughed out loud at some of the things she said because she was just really funny. And I also loved how Tessa Bailey made Piper's character high maintenance, and you could tell she enjoyed the finer things in life. And I like that Tessa Bailey didn't make her feel ashamed for it, because I feel like in a lot of stories or movies, people will make young women characters be high maintenance and like, you know, shopaholics and all this stuff, but they'll make them seem very shallow or very just like really like grossly materialistic, or just makes them, or like puts them down in a way because they're high maintenance. And there's nothing wrong with having high standards. There's nothing wrong with being, you know, accustomed to the finer things in life. There's nothing wrong with that. So I just really enjoyed that Tessa like didn't bash Piper's character, but instead like had her embrace her high maintenance-ness and went on about her day. I like that. So Piper was amazing. This is a Piper stan account. I also, Brendan was something. Brendan, I'm not gonna lie, Brendan was interesting. I couldn't stand him at first because yes, he was misogynistic and very just rude and nasty to Piper for no reason whatsoever. Like all that angst and all that hatred was just really like a lot for this man, but whatever. Obviously towards the end of the story things look up from there, but like he was a little like in the beginning. But overall I thoroughly enjoyed the story, and Tessa Bailey's actually creating a sequel to this book, and it's going to follow Piper's sister Hannah, and I'm so excited because Hannah was an amazing character. She was such a great sister, and I just loved her. I loved her character. I loved her passion for music, and I just loved it. So I cannot wait to read that. I think that comes out in March of next year, so best believe I will be getting that. I still need to get the physical copy of this book, of It Happened One Summer. It sold out everywhere near me, so I had to get the ebook, but best believe I will be getting that physical copy because that's going to be my new comfort romance read. Besides Ace of Spades, that was one of my other favorite reads of this year. It was so good, and because it reminded me of Wattpad, I just loved it even more. I used to spend so much time on Wattpad back in the day, so you know. And the last book that I read, which was actually impromptu, I didn't know that this was going to be something that I read, but I'm really glad I did, and it is called Good Rich People by Eliza Jane Brazier, I think her last name is. This was a wild ride, but in the best way possible. I actually left a review. I just posted a review of this book on my Bookstagram, and it was amazing. So I received this book from Galley and Berkely in exchange for an honest review, and it was so good. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It really doesn't take that much to impress me, I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to like thrillers and romances, but this one right here, mind blown, mind blown. What Brazier did for this book, I never, was amazing. I never read a story like this before. So basically, I'm just gonna read the synopsis because it is not out yet. It won't be published until January 25th, 2022. So still got a ways to go, but I'm gonna read the synopsis of this book. So the synopsis reads as: a destitute woman deceives her way into the guest house of a Hollywood Hills mansion and becomes a target in the twisted game of the wealthy family upstairs. So this is basically a book that is about rich people and how they like to play games, and how essentially they think life is a big game because a lot of them don't really have to deal with consequences because they're rich. So this book talks a lot about, you know, social status, class, money, old money versus new money, and how others will just view, judge, and be suspicious of you no matter how much money you have in your bank account, especially if you get it by pulling up your bootstraps. So yeah, I thought this was a brilliant book. The way I described this was the most bizarre, outlandish, absurd, camp, and downright disturbing story I've ever read, and I loved every second of it. I believe that if The Hunger Games, The Gossip Girl, and The Purge franchise somehow had a love child, it would be this book. It is just so good, and I can't, you know, say too much else just because like it's not out yet, but just know that this is one of the best psychological thrillers I've ever read, and I cannot wait to get the physical copy of this book to proudly display it on my bookshelf, and to also remind people why psychological thrillers reign supreme. I don't care what people say, I'm always gonna love a good psychological thriller. I want to have that earth-shattering, like mind-blowing experience where it's like, whoa, I did not see that coming. And with this book, every twist and turn I did not see coming. And that's really hard, I feel like, in books, thriller books. I feel like a lot of the times you can predict the plot, you can predict the outcome. This book, I didn't know anything. I did not know anything. When I thought I knew something, I was wrong. I was proven wrong, and I was proven wrong in the most chaotic and explosive way possible, and I loved it. Another way I would describe this book is like, it reminds me of when you're looking at something and you know you shouldn't look at it, but you can't look away because it's so effed up. Like that is literally the whole premise of this book. It is just so outlandish and absurd and ridiculous, but it works. And I cannot wait for this book to get the justice it deserves when it is published. It is so good. So thank you again, Galley and Berkely Publishing Group, for sending me a early digital copy of this book. Like I mentioned, all opinions and reviews are my honest truth, and I honestly believe that this book was amazing, and I recommend it for anyone that is a fan of psychological thrillers. It is not going to be everyone's cup of tea because it is very weird. It is very weird and very strange. Definitely gives like American Psycho vibes, like definitely strange, but like I enjoyed it, so yeah. All right, y'all, so that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to get some gems out of here, and let me know down below what you read for the month of August, if you read any of these books, or if you're interested in reading any of them, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.